Hi everyone, it's Monica and welcome back to my channel. Well, over the holidays I received, this is one of the gifts that I received, and one of my goals for 2020 was to get more into journal making. So I had asked my husband for a bookbinding kit and I wanted to share that with you, and then I want to show you what I've been working on. Now the kit itself is this. It comes with the awl, which is what you pierce your journal with to be able to bind your paper or your cover. It came with some needles, which are the thicker needles, and they're longer to be able to go through the paper. You've got some tools here to be able to score your pages or your binding covers, whatever the case may be. And then it also came with some waxed string, and the string is typically used to bind your signatures. Now, if you're not into journal making, or if you've considered getting into it but just haven't kind of taken the dive, that's something that I'm going to be doing this year, and I'm going to be sharing with you my progress on my YouTube channel, so you can see from a beginner standpoint some of the things that I've struggled with, some of the things that worked for me, and maybe some shortcuts along the way. Now these things here they're elasticy, and they also are used for your journals. And let me show you what I mean by that. They're a great way to actually create places to house your signatures if you don't want to actually, pierce your back cover. And it's these black things right here. So you're able to actually replace your signatures. So this is some signatures that I created, and as you can see, I bound it with my wax string, and then I went ahead and I just added it to my book, and I like this technique versus actually sewing the signatures into the book, because then I can replace my signatures. So this is one that I created recently, and this is more of a travel journal size. I've actually created some different sizes as well. This is a little bit different size. And I've been practicing actually covering my the outsides. So this is one that I recently put together, and I haven't actually created the signatures yet. Here's another one, more of a traveler journal size, and this one I actually put some ties on, and as you can see, it holds the 3 signatures inside. So you can either create a tie or not. You can just bind it kind of like I did with this one right here. And I'm going to show you both ways, because certainly we don't want our journals all to look the same necessarily. So there's lots of different techniques and tricks that you can use along the way to be able to close your journal, to be able to give it just a little bit of a different look, so that way when you are creating your journals you can have different options. And I have to tell you that the journal making has been a little bit obsessing me. I mean, it really is addicting, because I have been creating journals like crazy. So I have a die cut that I use this one on, and it has a little closure, and I created my signatures here. This is a Valentine's one, and by the way, all these journals are in my shop, so if you are interested after the video, you can check out the links below. But I have this one here. This is a smaller one, Hugs and Kisses, and it has 2 signatures, and all of my books have the elastic so you can replace your signatures, but this is a real cute one as well. This one I just showed you a few minutes ago. It's a little bit bigger. These 2 are more of a travel size journal, and then this one here is more of a diary size journal, and then this one is just a little bit smaller than this one. Now this is what we're going to be focusing on today, because I wanted to be able to have you follow me on my journey and hopefully get you guys into creating some journals, because I have to tell you, it's been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. So that's what I want to be able to share with you. Just fix this here because we're going to be doing some journal making. All right, so this is what I wanted to share with you, and it has 2 signatures. I have the 2 eyelets here on the end to be able to hold my elastic, and then I was binding it. Now this here is just simple packing tape and it works great. There's also this here, which is actual book binding, and these are both 2 inches, and I've been using this one because it's more of a vintage color, but black is one also that would be great to bind your the backing, and I'm going to show you how to use this as well. And then for the signatures, I've been using this tool here along with the eyelets, and I really like the result that I get with these because it's a nice clean finish. And it looks good and you don't have the strings. Now I will be showing you how to actually have your strings on the outside, but for these I like the clean look, so that's the way that I've been going. And again, with journal making, practice makes perfect. So like you can see, I've created a lot of journals because I need the practice, but I really enjoy it. So this is the design that I was talking about, and I have a kit in my shop, and I'm calling it the Sweetheart Pocket Journal Bundle, and I'll show you what you're going to get in the kit in just a minute. But this is some of the Ideology from Tim Holtz, and then this is some of the stuff that's in my kit. But I created pockets, so you have a pocket here that I have a little token. You have a bigger pocket back here, and then you have a smaller pocket right here. And then I have some actual metal elements. I've got a brad here, and I've got this metal element here. And then I've got a little chipboard up there. And then the design is kind of like a Valentine design. So I thought it would be a really fun journal to start with. So let me go ahead and share with you the kit. So in the kit, you're going to get lots of stuff because I wanted to be able to give you guys a lot of items to be able to stick in the pockets. And the front and the back are these 2 pieces here. And what's nice about this is that you can create multiple sizes of journals using these. We're going to actually create the bigger one today. We're going to create this one today. But like you can see, this is the smaller version. And then you're going to also get some pockets. Now you're going to have to print this out a couple of times because you're going to want your layers. But you have your pockets, and you can either go with the printed little lock here or without. And then I have a pocket that you're going to be able to put in, and this is what I was saying about if you don't want to have to use an actual metal element. I created a little tab here that you can place here, and we'll show you how to do that. And then some items to actually go into your pockets. Now you're also going to get lots of fun items. So you're going to get these love potions, and this love potion here would be really fun to put on the top of a journal as well if you want your journal to be labeled love potions. So that would be really fun. You've got these little cards here that I created that you'll be able to print and cut out. We've got some Victorian love notes that you can stick in your pockets, and then you've got some literature quotes as well. So like you can see, you got lots of items that you're going to be able to work with to create your journal. So let me go ahead and get this all cut out, and then I'll be back and we'll go ahead and we'll put together the journal.
Okay, so let's get started here. You're going to need to start out with your bases, and you can do this with using old cereal boxes. You can use grunge board, anything that's really sturdy, and you're going to measure it to about 8 inches long by 6 inches wide, and this will give you a nice diary size journal. And then your binder is going to be, or your back part is going to be 1 inch by 8 inches long. Now you are going to need some tools here. You're going to need some double-sided tape, and then I would recommend also some liquid adhesive. And what I really like to use is this 3-in-1 liquid adhesive. It works really great and it dries pretty quickly, but it still gives you time to move it around. Now, of course, you're going to need to print out all of your paper to get started. And then when you go to cover your journal, you're going to want to make sure that when you are doing your gluing, that you take into consideration the image on the front. Now, for the back side, it really doesn't matter. You're going to get some really nice print any way you go. But for the front, you're going to want to make sure that you position base so that your pocket is towards the lower bottom part of your journal front. All right, so to glue down my base, I'm just using my liquid adhesive, and this is going to give me a really nice, secure adhesive. And then I'm going to want to give it a minute to actually dry. Now, what I like about the liquid adhesive is, like I said, it still gives you time to move it around, and you can turn over the cardstock to make sure that you have it positioned exactly to the part of the image that you want showing. Now, like I said, for the back, it really doesn't make too much of a difference. But for the front, you want to make sure that you do position it so that pocket obviously is more towards the front part of the journal, because you are going to have some binding. Don't forget about that. But you still want to make sure you leave room to fold over your edges. Now for my journal, as you can see, I did leave some of that white edge showing, and my thought behind that was that it's going to get folded over. But one of the things that I learned along the way is when you are folding it over, when you go to actually cover the back side, you want to make sure that that white isn't showing. You are going to be covering it with some cardstock that's 1/4 of an inch smaller, and you want to make sure that that white isn't going to show. So if you have enough room, I probably would recommend going ahead and trimming it. And you really should have enough room to trim it down, even if you are going to make the bigger journal. With the smaller journals, of course, you're going to have plenty of room. But just to make sure that that white isn't showing on the inside, you may want to go ahead and trim off that white border. Honestly, you only need about an inch to be able to fold over. So as you can see here, I am trimming it down. So once you determine exactly where your base is going to go, just go ahead and trim down your paper so that you have about an inch on all 4 sides showing. And then give it a moment to dry. You want to make sure that it's going to be nice and secure. All right, so before you actually add your double-sided adhesive, one thing that I found is just you want to get the edges and kind of just give it a little bit of a fold over. This will just give you a head start when you actually go to fold over your edges. And then also, one thing that I learned in making a few of these journals, a lot of people just go straight across and cut it diagonal close to the corner, but I found if you actually don't actually go on a diagonal, it's going to give you better coverage. Sometimes when I was doing that diagonal cut, I was still showing that grunge board or the board when I folded it over, but by cutting it exactly how I did a few seconds ago, you're going to make sure that it's nice coverage and that board isn't going to show when you fold over all 4 corners. Okay, so when you actually go to use your to fold over your corners, I would recommend using your double-sided tape. And the reason for this is if you do use the liquid adhesive, while it will work, it's going to take a minute to dry, and you're fighting with heavy cardstock here. So when you go to fold it over, the glue isn't going to adhere and stay closed right away. So you're going to have to hold it down. Whereas if you use the double-sided tape, it's going to stick immediately. And as long as you have kind of helped the fold along to begin with, you're going to be able to get a nice crisp fold. Now, one thing that I've also learned is when I'm tearing this tape, you could easily tear it, but if you like to have nice straight corners, you can use your ruler like I'm doing here. You can easily just maneuver the ruler to have a catted corner cut and then just rip the tape, and it works really well. And then you're going to want to use some sort of a poking tool to be able to pull up your double-sided tape. You don't have to have this. You can use your fingernails. But I have found by having a poking tool, it's easier to get underneath and pull the top right off. Okay, so another thing that I learned also when I was doing these journals is you probably want to do the short side first. And again, it's not required, but I just found when I was doing these journals, it just looked a lot better. You can certainly use the table to help move that fold over as I just did. But if you do the short sides first and then do the long sides, it looks a lot cleaner. So that would be my recommendation. And then it's cohesive. You've got, both corners looking exactly the same. And that's really what you want to have, is you want to have a journal that looks professionally covered and bound and I found just the cohesiveness really makes it look a lot more professional. And then once you have your backside cover, you're going to do exactly the same thing with the front side. And this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with a front and a back that's covered. Your corners are going to be really nice, and you're going to be ready to go. Now, here's where you need to decide if you're going to have some sort of a tie closure. If you're going to create a really thick junk journal, then I do recommend some sort of a tie, because the more paper that you put in your journal, of course, the more that it's going to stay open. So this is where you want to go ahead and add your ribbon or your tie or whatever kind of closure you're going to be using for your book. Now, as you can see here, when I am adding the ribbon, I am going pretty far into the journal for my ribbon, and that's because I want to make sure that I don't pull that ribbon out when I'm actually using my journal. You're going to find that you're going to be untying and tying this journal quite a bit, so you want to make sure that you have that ribbon going really far towards the back of your journal, so that way it will not get pulled out. And then you can easily just kind of eyeball it here. I just kind of lined it up to figure out exactly where my other piece needed to go. And I was able to get a pretty good match as far as the front and the back tie. All right, so once you have your ribbon adhered, then we want to go ahead and cover the inside part of your book. Now, another thing before you actually cover the inside is if you're going to do any sort of metal embellishments, anything where you might be needing some brads to add to the front of your journal, this is the time to do it, because you want to make sure that you get those clasps adhered before you actually cover the back, because you don't want those showing through your paper on the inside. So if you're going to do any sort of brads or any type of embellishments that require holes to be poked, you want to do that now. All right, so when you go to cover the inside of your journal, remember we cut our paper 6 by 8. You want to be 1/4 of an inch smaller than that, and that's going to give you a nice little border. You don't want to have the exact same size, because it just doesn't look right. And this is what I was talking about, where your white could show. If you have the white, as you can see here on this one, you're going to see the white at the bottom. It shows through, but I was able to actually fix that by adding a pocket. But if you're not adding a pocket, you might want to be aware of this. So make sure that when you are folding over your cover, that you're not going to have any of that white showing on the inside. And you want your journal to look as pretty on the inside as it does on the outside. So you really want to pay attention to those details. And as you can see, I just used some liquid adhesive. I added it to all 4 corners, and then I'm going to put it aside and let it dry. And you're going to want to do this on both sides. So as I'm doing here, I'm doing the second side now, again using that liquid adhesive, and then I'm going to go ahead and place it on the inside of my journal, and then I'm going to give it a few minutes to dry. Okay, so after your paper dries, then there's a couple of ways you can go. If you want to put any sort of pockets on the inside of your journal covers, you can do that right now, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and use one of those side pockets that's in the kit, or you can go right to the adding the back binding. But I wanted to go ahead and add this corner pocket to go ahead and cover that white part that's showing on the left side here of my journal. As I indicated, when I folded it over, I had some of that white showing, and I wanted to go ahead and get that covered before I moved on. So what's really nice about the kit is I did give you a side pocket, and if you wanted to cut more, maybe you wanted to use a different type of paper, you can certainly use this as a template. And the side pocket that I'm giving you actually has a back side, but because I wanted my pink to show, I'm going to go ahead and just trim off that white portion, so that way the pink will show on the inside of my pocket. And then you may need to trim part of the bottom and the corner as well, just to make it, look right. Now, one thing I haven't been doing along the way is I haven't been adding my distress inks to my edging to make it look a little bit more vintage, but you certainly can do that along the way, especially when you're working with cardstock. You're going to have some of that white edge showing on some of your pieces. So it's always nice to get some of your inks to just take away that white portion, so that way it's not showing. So that's what I did on the pocket here. I wanted to make sure that my white portion wasn't showing on the corners and on the edges. So I went ahead and pulled out one of my daubers, and I'm going to add some ink just to cover up some of that white. And for any kind of pockets that I adhere, I recommend using the liquid adhesive. While you can certainly use the double-sided tape, you want to make sure that when you are adding things to your pockets that it doesn't get caught on that tape. And I find if you use liquid adhesive, then it's less likely to get caught up. Another thing that I found really useful, especially when I'm using some of that liquid adhesive, is those binding clips. And I'm going to be showing you those in a minute here. And those work great to kind of hold down your paper while it's drying, especially when you're using the liquid adhesive. I went to Staples and I picked up a whole box of the medium binding clips. You probably could use some small ones as well. I think the big ones are probably a little bit too big. And you want to make sure that they're not so tight that they're indenting your book. But those black binding clips are perfect for holding your paper in place while it's drying with the liquid glue. And you can have those binder clips attached while you're putting the spine together. They really don't get in the way. And it was a nice way to make sure that that pocket was nice and secure. And then I could still continue to work on the journal. Okay, so while this pocket is drying, we're going to go ahead and put the book together with our spine. And as I shared with you in the beginning of the video, I use, what do I use? I use packing tape, and it's 2 inches wide. You can get it different sizes, but I find 2 inches is great because my spines are typically 1 inch. And then I have a 1/2 inch on each side to go ahead and adhere my front and my back. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it here. So to begin, you're going to want to make sure that you have a strip of cardboard or whatever you're using for your base. And you want it to be about 1 inch wide. And then you want it to be as long as your book. This book is 8 inches long. So you want it to be 8 inches by 1 inch. And then you're going to take your masking tape or your packing tape and you're going to open it up, but you're not going to rip it yet because you want to make sure that you kind of get it lined up perfectly. I mean, I guess you could probably figure out how much you need and then cut it. But when I did that before, sometimes it kind of got a little tangled. So I find keeping it on the actual roll worked really well for me. And then you're going to want to take your back part of your journal and then put it right in the middle. Some people fold the tape, where it's not going to be sticky, of course, to figure out where the center is. And then you can go ahead and add your back spine. But I just kind of eyeballed it. And then once you get your back spine attached, then you're going to take your front and your back and you're going to add it to the tape that's left over on the side. And you want it to be pretty close, but not touching the spine, because remember, you want your book to be able to close, and if it's too close, then it's not going to close. So get as close as you can without touching the spine is what I'll say, so that way you'll have some movement. And then once you get it adhered, then that little piece, the little tail that you had on the bottom, you're going to go ahead and fold it up. Now, here's the deal. So you want to make sure that it's straight and it's tight. But that's sometimes easier said than done. I do a pretty good job, but sometimes I can't get it exactly straight, and I don't know why. And I think this is just where practice comes into play. So as you can see, I kind of pulled the roll over to figure out exactly how much tape that I'll need, and then I'm going to go ahead and line it up. And because this is tape, you don't have a lot of chances. It's not like it's the liquid adhesive where you can move it around. So I just kind of make sure that I have it exactly lined up. you have to make sure it's tight so you don't have any excess on the bottom part here where I'm showing you. But you have to also make sure that it's lined up. So this is where your practice is going to come into play. It's not hard. You just have to be patient. You got to make sure that you have it lined up. And you want to make sure that it's tight, because this is what's holding your book together. And then once you have it lined up completely, getting all of the bubbles out, then you just want to go ahead and rub your finger through, or over it, I should say, to make sure it's nice and secure. And then some people actually take their bone folder to crease it, but I don't find that necessary. When you fold over your pages, that's going to create a nice crease. So just get your front and your back page and fold it over, close your book like you normally would, just to make sure that it's nice and secure and that it's going to hold its place. Now, when you look at the binding on the outside, hopefully you've lined this up evenly, because this is going to show, obviously. And that's another thing. I think it's just practice. You're going to want to make sure that you get enough tape on the front part as well as the back part, so that way it's even. You don't want to have your binding strip too small or too thin on the front and really thick on the back. You just want to make sure that it's nice and even and proportioned. Okay, now your book is together. Now the fun part gets to start, and this is where you actually get to add your signatures, decorate your book, and kind of make it your own. Now, I'm going to have a second video where we actually put the signatures together. I know this is a longer video, but I wanted to be as detailed as I could for you. So come back tomorrow and you'll be able to see part 2 of this after we put the pocket together. So in the printables that my kit has, you're going to get your pockets, of course, and you're going to want to go ahead and cut them out, and they're sized perfectly for this size of journal. If you want to make it a smaller journal, then you may need to downsize your pockets. But you can easily size those, because those are digital images, and digital images are really easily to size down. So your first piece that you cut out is going to be the entire pocket, and if you don't want to actually have interactive pockets or open pockets, then you could stop here, adhere it, you'd be good to go. But I wanted my pocket to actually have working pockets, so I'm going to go ahead and layer my pockets onto the base pocket. So as you can see, I cut out the first pocket, and this is the bigger pocket, and I'm going to go ahead and use my ink to edge up, or to color up my edges so the white isn't showing. And then I'm going to go ahead and use my liquid adhesive to adhere my first pocket. And then after I get that pocket adhered, then I'm going to go ahead and take my third pocket that I've printed out, and I'm going to cut the smaller pocket. And when I say the smaller pocket, it's the pocket that has that little lock there. But if you're going to add some sort of your own lock, whether it be a metal embellishment or the paper embellishment that I created, you're going to want to use the pocket that doesn't have that faux lock on the paper. Now for this video, I'm only creating the 2 pockets. I'm not creating that smaller pocket that's holding the coin. But if you did want to create that smaller pocket, then you're going to kind of just do the same thing. You're going to trim around the pocket. But when you do that small pocket, make sure that you trim to include that little script paper, because it just will look nicer. You don't want to cut that out of your pocket. You want to make sure that you have it. So just keep that in mind. If you are adding that little pocket, you're going to actually cut around the script and then up and around the pocket for that smaller pocket. But for this pocket, we're going straight across. We're going to go ahead and cut it just as I did, and then we're going to add some ink to the edges so the white isn't showing. And then we're going to go ahead and attach our little paper element that looks like a metal number 14. And this particular kit is intended for Valentine's Day, and that's why I have the number 14 here. But I hope to get some more of these little metal tags in the shop soon, to have different options. It would be really fun to be able to use different numbers, maybe some words, all sorts of things you can do with this pocket. So I'm hoping to get that done, but I really wanted to get this kit together in time for your Valentine's Day crafting, because I think it's a wonderful project, not only for journals but also for card making as well. And for this little metal embellishment here, it's paper, but it's made to look like metal. I am going to use some actual brads to adhere it. So once you get it cut out, you're going to ink the edges, and then I like to go ahead and adhere it with my liquid adhesive first, before I add my brads. And the brads don't necessarily hold it down. The glue is going to hold it down for you, but I just think the brads, make it look a little bit more authentic. And keep in mind, this is going to be a working pocket. So because you're going to have the brads on the inside, what I would recommend also is to take some of that packaging tape that we used for the spine and cover the insides of the brads, because you want to make sure that when you are putting your ephemera in, you have a nice smooth inside so it doesn't get caught up on anything. And then once you have your number 14 attached, then again, you're just going to take some liquid adhesive, add it to the edges and the bottom, and adhere it to your pocket. And then once you have your pocket assembled, then you can go ahead and add the liquid adhesive to the entire pocket and adhere it to your front of your journal. Now you're going to notice that the journal picture on the front of the journal is a little bit smaller, and that's intentional to make sure that your bigger pocket's going to cover it. You're not going to have any of that picture showing, but it is perfectly sized in the kit. So all you have to do is print it out and cut, and you're good to go. Now, I hope this was helpful for you. I wanted to make sure that for you beginner journal makers, I kind of went through the step process of putting this together. I by no means am professional at putting together these journals. I am a beginner, but I've made several now, and I've been able to figure out exactly what works and what doesn't, and some of the things to kind of think about when you're putting together your first journal. And hopefully my kit will kind of help you, right? I mean, you'll have everything that you need to put this together, and you'll have step-by-step instructions to get you going on your journal making. And with your pocket adhered, then you're ready to go ahead and start working on your signatures. And we're going to actually do that in the next video. I hope to get that video out for you tomorrow. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure that you do hit that subscribe button, and that you also click the little bell so you're notified when the next video comes along. I wanted to put this in a 2-part video so it's not too long for you. And for those of you that want to just kind of focus on putting together the base journal, you have one video to be able to do that. And then once you kind of master that, then you can go ahead and start working on your signatures. So what I would say, guys, is don't get discouraged. You're not going to necessarily master it on the first try. I've been creating these journals. I created them all December. That's why you didn't see a lot of videos coming out in the month of December from me. But I really have been practicing because I really get a kick out of these, and because I collect vintage ephemera, I want to start using some of that for my junk journals, and then I can, include them on my shop or sell them at some of the local craft stores here in Prescott. We have lots of craft shows in the summer, so I'm kind of gearing up for that as well. All right, everybody. So again, I hope this was informative for you. I will leave links to all of the products that I've used below, along with the kit over in the shop. And then I will be back again tomorrow or in the next couple of days with the second part of this journal, so we can go ahead and create some of our signatures. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for stopping by. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the channel. All right. We'll see you again next time.